What is up everyone, Boshi here, back at it in Raid Shadow Legends, and this weekend we have a 10 times event, and honestly it has some pretty tempting champions in it. Let's jump into it. Alrighty guys, so yes, it is going to be a 10 times this week, and it's going to be for all shards. So it's going to be for ancients, sacreds, and void shards. And like I said, there are some pretty tempting champions in this 10 times event. Now do remember, always check the information within the summoning stone. With all 10 times, the chances of getting epics and legendaries do not go up. It just means if you happen to get an epic or a legendary, you have a 10 times chance to get these specific champions. So just want to make sure, always check on the information when the summoning event goes live, which it will be going live just at the same time, I believe, as the champion chase tournament that starts right here. So yeah, it's gonna be you're gonna be able to get, like, I think 15 fragments through the champion chase tournament if you happen to open that many shards. But yeah, it is a 10 times, so we'll see how many people actually participate in that. But yeah, so like usual, I will be going through all the champions, their kits, give you my opinion on them, and at the very end of the video I will talk about if you should be summoning during this event. But yeah, let's jump right into it. So the very first champion we're going to look at is a void champion, and that's going to be Skytouched Shaman. So Skytouched Shaman is very good, very extremely good healer, can be used in dungeons, mainly seen in arena and faction wars. For arena, you probably usually use an immunity set, just to make sure that she can get her cleanse off and whatnot. But let's go ahead and jump through her kit so you guys all know what she does. So on the A1 we have a Talon Knives, attacks all enemies, heals 15% of the damage inflicted if this champion has less than 50% HP, boosts this champion's turn meter by 20% instead if this champion has a 50% HP or higher. So overall, a very good A1. It is an AoE, and can help like continuously allow her to get turns as long as she's not, dying. On the A2 we have Immortal Skies, remove all debuffs from all allies, then places a revive on death buff and a block debuffs buff on all allies for 2 turns. So this is pretty much why the immunity set is so important on her, just to make sure that she doesn't get any debuffs, she's not like blocked cooldown or anything. She then can use Immortal Skies, remove all debuffs from everyone on the team, and then put up the revive on death and the block debuffs as well. Extremely good. And then her passive, which is pretty much what her kit, what allows her to heal so much. So Bloodstained Ritual, damage this champion by 10% of their max HP at the start of each turn, heals all allies except this champion equal to half of the lost HP, places a 30% decrease speed debuff on this champion for 1 turn at the start of each turn, also has a 50% chance of placing a fear debuff on this champion for 1 turn. Once again, why you have an immunity set, you'll at least get probably 2 turns, as long as obviously the immunity set block debuffs buff doesn't get removed. But yeah, so notice this part right here, heals all allies except this champion equal to half of the lost HP. So this is the total amount of lost HP. So the lower the health she has, the more healing she will do, which pretty much at some point will just fully heal all of your ally champions, which is very big. It is unfortunate eventually when you have to take the decreased speed and the fear debuffs, but it is like somewhat of a balancing act for her. And then she has the aura, increase ally HP in all battles by 25%. But yeah, so like I said, she is extremely good for just dungeons in general. I used her in Faction Wars 21. She was very clutch there for keeping everyone healed. And then obviously Arena, she does extremely well with an immunity set. In general though, for like dungeons and faction wars, I would say probably an immortal set to continuously heal her and give her that extra HP, so it kind of works with her passive as well. But overall, an extremely good champion, definitely worth getting if you don't have one. Next is going to be a lizardman by the name of Basilisk. Not the best champion, I'll say that right now. I did use him in Faction Wars, and I used him in the Epic Lizardman Secret Room. So yeah, you can use him in those areas. And overall, I would say he's not a terrible, terrible champion. But yeah, let's go through his kit. It's very simple kit though, by the way. So on the A1, attack all enemies, places a 25% increased attack buff on this champion for 2 turns if this attack is critical. So pretty much with him, I ended up building him in a stun set, and that's because he only has 2 abilities, and his A1 is an AoE. So this automatically makes him a candidate for a stun set, just because he has, like, I guess he has a higher chance of just using that stun set with having an AoE A1 all the time. I do wish the increased attack was the bigger version. They could have at least gave him that, but overall a very basic A1. He does hit decently hard though, so I can't really complain on that front. On the A2, Skull Clobber, attack one enemy, places a stun debuff for 1 turn on a 3-turn cooldown if you book it. So yeah, overall I would say not the greatest champion, like I said, but he does have his uses. If you build him in a stun set, he does very well for being a CC type champion in Faction Wars and the Secret Room. Yeah, and then his passive revives this champion to 30% HP when killed and places a block damage buff for 1 turn. You can drop this down to a 6-turn cooldown if you happen to book him. This is very good for Faction Wars in general, just because a self-revive is always good, because you obviously want to keep everyone alive for those 3-star completions. And this is one champion you won't have to worry about, depending on how you build him and whatnot. 6 turns is a long cooldown, but if you can make him survive, and then you happen to, or he dies early and then he gets through his turns more, he can die again and come back. So overall, not a bad candidate for, like I said, Faction Wars. Definitely a decent champion for the Secret Room, just because there's not a lot of options for the Secret Room. But he is a very good CC champ and a stun set. So yeah, let's go to the next champion. So the next one is going to be Khoronar from the Skinwalkers, a Void Legendary. I think he's been in a couple of 10 times recently, but yeah. So on the A1, attack all enemies, has a 50% chance of decreasing each target's turn meter by 5%. Attack all enemies 2 times instead of 1, and the chance of decreasing each target's turn meter increases to 100% if Manaya is on the same team. The damage of each hit will be decreased by 50%. So a pretty cool A1, very, very big turn meter control oriented, especially if you have a Manaya, so it's a pretty cool A1. Once again, AoE A1s are always nice. You can put him, I know a lot of people put him in a taunting set for this purpose, because you're doing A1s all the time, and he does, I believe, have a taunt later on in his kit, like right here. On the A2, Beastly Bellow has a 75% chance or 100% chance if you book it of placing a provoke debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. Places a block debuffs buff and a 60% increased defense buff on this champion for 2 turns, so helps him out with defending, and then removes all debuffs from this champion before placing the block debuffs buff and increased defense buff if Manaya is on the team. Once again, with Manaya on the team, he becomes an absolute beast. But overall, yeah, you can drop this down to a 3-turn cooldown, and you're placing that provoke down for 1 turn, placing these buffs up for 2 turns. Very good in the sense of CCing your opponent. So you already have a provoke right here for AoE. You have turn meter control on the A1. On the A3, attack all enemies, places a 50% decrease attack debuff on all enemies for 2 turns, and then places a 60% decreased defense debuff on targets under decreased attack debuffs. So very good, 4-turn cooldown. Once again, another AoE attack, which makes the taunting set even better, because you're just constantly AoEing. And then you have his 2 passives. So his passive, Ferocious Guard, counterattacks when hit by enemies under decreased attack, decreased defense, or decreased speed, which he applies. So very good right there. And once, like I said, his counterattack is going to be the AoE decrease, turn meter, and whatnot. So very cool. And then on the other passive, Spectacle, places a 60% increased defense buff on all allies for 2 turns if this champion kills an enemy. Probably not going to come in like too handy, but is a pretty cool little passive that he has. So overall, an extremely good champion. AoEs all around, good for a taunting set, which the taunting set is just not used very often. So it's kind of cool to see a champion with that. If you have Manaya, I think he's definitely worth trying to get because they're just a beast in arena. But yeah, overall, extremely good champion. Can be used, I think, in majority places. Like I said, in arena, he does very well even without Manaya. Faction Wars, he's going to do well just because Skinwalkers is just one of those faction wars that it's nice to have the upper tier of champions. And then Dungeons, I could see him working just because he does have the CC potential with his A1, with the Provoke on the A2, and his increased defense and block debuffs, and then he also has that decreased attack and decreased defense. So overall, I think he's just going to be good everywhere. Very good progression champion. So yeah. So next we have 2 demon spawns. So we are going to have Nazana. So Nazana, I used in the beginning of my faction wars. I haven't really used her anywhere else. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump through her kit and see if she can be used anywhere else. So on the A1, very basic, attacks all enemies, making her a candidate for a stun set. I believe that's actually what I ended up using her within the faction wars. So yeah. On the A2, we have Unholy Contract, places a 50% ally protection buff on all allies for 2 turns, and then places a shield buff on this champion for 2 turns. The value of the shield is equal to 40% of this champion's max HP. On a 3-turn cooldown, always nice to have like an AoE type protection ability like ally protection on your team, with a shield on herself, which means even though she will be taking damage for the ally protection, she will not be taking as much damage as you would without a shield, which is very, very nice. On the A3, we have attack all enemies, has a 50% chance or 75% chance if you book it, of placing a 50% decreased attack debuff for 2 turns. A decreased attack debuff is actually pretty big in terms of like faction wars and whatnot, just because it helps your team survive for that 3-star completion. And it's another AoE, like I said, stun set all over the place right here on the A1 and the A3. And then we have increased ally HP and faction crypts by 28 for the aura. So overall, yeah, I would say she actually could be used in multiple places. Having people that do AoE attacks with stun sets just helps for progression in general. So yeah, you have 2 attacks that do all enemies, you have a decreased attack, and you have ally protection. So overall, I would say she can be used in multiple places in dungeons. Like I said, I've only seen her, or I've only really used her in faction wars. I haven't really put her in many other places, but I definitely could see her being a pretty decent champion to level and push for maybe progression or maybe just CC and arena, and that type of thing. But yeah, overall, not a bad champion. Next, we have Prince Kymar. So, Prince Kymar is a legendary I deeply want. He is extremely good at speedruns just because he has a reset ability. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump through the kit. I'm pretty sure everyone knows what he does, but we'll go through it anyway. Phantom Fire on the A1 attacks all enemies, places a 5% poison debuff for 1 turn if this attack is critical. Very basic A1. You don't have to build him for damage, so you don't need to build the critical, like the critical hit chance on him to get this poison. It's not the most important thing in the world, but it's not a bad thing. Yeah. So on the A2, we have attack all enemies, removes all buffs, and then places a sleep debuff for 1 turn. And you can put this onto a 3-turn cooldown. Pretty cool. Sleep isn't the best debuff, but it can become useful in terms of arena, just to get, like, if they're very close to their turn, you can do the A2, put them all to sleep, they all take their turns while sleeping, and then it rotates back to you. So not a bad A1 or A2. I mean, overall it's extremely, it's mainly used probably for the remove buffs portion of it, not the sleep debuff, but yeah. And then what he's extremely known for, Seal of Magic, resets the cooldowns of all ally skills and then fills the turn meter of all allies except this champion by 20%. You can drop this down to a 6-turn cooldown. Yeah, so this is what he's known for all those seer comps that are just blowing through Doom Tower waves and stuff like that. You can do like a, Molosseum Mage into a seer blow up into a Prince Kymar reset, and then do it all over again. So extremely good in that sense. Just a champion that I want to have just to see what I can do with all the other champions I have. So yeah, extremely good. Can't say much about him, honestly. He kind of speaks for himself. And then on the aura, increase ally speed in arena battles by 30%. Huge arena aura. Very good for arena in that sense. I see a lot of people use him in arena and stuff like that. In my opinion, he isn't the best in arena just because a lot of times arenas are ending in like 1 to 2 turns, so you typically won't have to reset abilities. But I have seen some people use the reset abilities, and obviously his aura works extremely well. So yeah, but overall, I think he's more of like the dungeon champion, or Doom Tower champion, in my opinion. So very, very much worth going for if you do not have a Prince Kymar. But like I said, it's a 10 times, so it's iffy. But yeah, he's definitely a champion you're going to want to get eventually. Next, we're going to go into the Undead Horde, and we're going to look at Skartosis first. So Skartosis is right here. Not a champion you see very often. Very good in dungeons, in my opinion, and I do have one. I actually don't use him as much as I think I should. You could definitely use him in Faction Wars, possibly Doom Tower as well. Yeah, let's go through his kit. So on the A1, attack all enemies, has a 30 or has a 50% chance if you book him of stealing a random buff from each enemy. Not a bad A1, but you're not going to be consistently stealing enough stuff, I feel, but it is on the A1, so it's just like a little extra thing to have on him, so not a bad ability. On the A2, you have Command, places a 50% increase attack buff and 30% increase crit rate buff on all allies for 2 turns. Very good support type of ability, and this can be down to a 3-turn cooldown. So can definitely help with pushing through damage a little bit more. If you really want to, you could technically build teams around Skartosis, just because he does provide that 30% crit rate buff. So you could build a lot of your damage dealers at 70% crit if you're heavily relying on Skartosis to keep this buff up. Just, not something you technically want to do. You technically want to build all your damage dealers to 100% crit rate if they are based on that damage type situation, but just, a thought, right? On the A3, Rebirth, we have heals all allies, then removes all debuffs from them. The amount of which each ally is healed increases according to the number of debuffs on them. The amount of by which each ally's turn meter is filled increases according to the number of debuffs on them. So yeah, pretty much this is going to be a nice big cleanse type of ability, and then you're increasing, you pretty much heal and increase ally turn meter. So really, really cool on a 5-turn cooldown. I wish it was a 4-turn cooldown, but it is doing a lot. You're healing, you're removing all debuffs, and you're increasing turn meter. Yeah, so I mean, honestly, not a bad thing. Trying to see if I missed anything. Yeah, nothing much, but yeah, a very good cleanse ability. But yeah, overall extremely good ability. And then on his aura, increase ally speed in dungeons by 33%. So this is like the big thing with him. From what I've seen, he's been used in many speed dungeon runs, and this is the reason, his 33%. So that's why I was saying you can kind of build a team around him if you're specifically looking to do so. With the whole 30% increased crit rate and attack, you can build some damage dealers with a little less crit rate, a little bit more attack percentage or crit damage. He has an AoE on the A1, so you could technically build him in a stun set if you really wanted to. You have a cleanse, a heal. So yeah, overall, very, like, in my opinion, I think he can be used in many cool scenarios. I just haven't tested him enough to say if he's good in certain areas. But yeah, overall, I think he would be good in dungeons. I have seen him used in arena. If you build him for damage, he actually hits decently hard. A lot of people like to build him more as a supporting type champion, as he is a support legendary. So a lot of people build him with like health or defense or whatnot, and then like they put like a taunting set on him, for example, so he can soak up all the damage, cleanse, heal, whatever. Provide that increased attack and crit rate, and let everyone else do the damage, do like their thing. But overall, I think he might actually do well as an attack-based champion. So yeah, not a bad champion. Next is going to be Suzerain Katonn, or Katonn. Very cool champion. Recently got him. Does extremely well in faction wars. Can do very well in dungeons as well. Let's go through his kit. So Temporal Nova, attack all enemies, has a 35 or 50% chance if booked, placing a decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. Extremely good AoE A1. That decreased speed can be very big in terms of just like putting a bunch of decreased speed on the enemy wave, and it's on the A1, so it's like a higher chance since you'll be doing it a little bit more. So very cool A1. On the A2, we have Hex of Years, attacks all enemies, has a 50 or a 80% chance if booked of placing a 25% weaken debuff for 2 turns, and then places a 60% decreased defense debuff for 2 turns if a weaken debuff is not placed. So that's a little odd, right? So it's trying to place the weaken first, and then if the weaken's not placed, it puts the, in my opinion, the better debuff up, which is a little weird, but overall, not a bad ability. Once again, another AoE based attack, which is extremely good. So you can build him very heavily damage wise, and he's going to be AoEing on every single attack. And then applying these debuffs, which is kind of nice. And then on the A3, we have Banish from Time, remove a shield, block damage, and unkillable buffs from all enemies, then attacks them. Very cool. And then places a 100% heal reduction debuff on all enemies for 2 turns. Not the best thing, but it is a 100% heal reduction, so it can come in handy in terms of that. And then the buff removal cannot be blocked or resisted, which is pretty big. You don't need accuracy for this portion. Obviously, you're still going to need accuracy for the weaken or decreased defense placement, or the decreased speed. But yeah, overall, extremely good A3. Once again, another AoE attack. So yeah, he is just very, very good at doing damage, and putting a lot of cool and useful debuffs, I would say. And then he has the aura, increase ally attack in all battles by 33%. Very good aura as well, boosting the attack even more. So yeah, overall a great champion to have. I think very underrated. Not many people use him, or I don't see him around as much. Maybe just because maybe people don't have him, I don't know. But I think he's a really good champion and worth investing in if you do end up getting him. Next we have some Dark Elves. So we have Psylar. Psylar, very, very good epic Void champion. So on the A1, attacks all enemies, very basic. Once again, candidate for a stun set. On the A2, we have attack all enemies, has a 80 or 100% chance if you book it of placing a decreased accuracy or 50% decreased accuracy debuff for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. Once again, another AoE attack, but the decreased accuracy is actually a very, very underrated debuff, in my opinion. Can happen, or it can be very good in PvP, but can also be good in dungeons and Doom Tower, preventing the boss from landing their specific debuffs on you. Specifically, like for dungeon wise, you could do Ice Golem or maybe Dragon, preventing the poisons or preventing the freezing and whatnot. In Doom Tower, there's multiple things, even in the waves, that you can, the decreased accuracy would help with. So extremely good A2 ability. And then on the A3, Leaden Legs places a 30% decreased speed debuff on all enemies for 2 turns, and then decreases turn meter of all enemies by 40% on a 4-turn cooldown. Very good for turn meter manipulation. I'm actually planning on building mine out. I have mine built already, but I think I'm gonna change her up a little bit to make her pure speed and accuracy, to use her in Doom Tower, just because with the combination of decreasing the turn meter by 40% with the decreased speed, you're CCing the opponent's turns just with that. Then you have a decreased accuracy in AoE ability on the A2, and an AoE ability on the A1. So with her in a stun set, you're possibly getting stuns and dropping turn meters multiple times before they might even get a turn. Yeah, so extremely good champion for CC. Increases all ally speed and faction crypts by 22% for an aura. So in general, where she's going to be used, I think anywhere, honestly, besides maybe clan boss. Clan boss is definitely not a thing that she should be doing. But Doom Tower, extremely well during waves. For faction wars, she definitely helped me all the way through faction wars, all the way to 21. I actually still use her in my faction wars. And then just in general in dungeons, she's extremely well, or extremely good as well. So overall, a very good champion to get if you end up pulling her. Next one is going to be Ray. So Ray is a very hard-hitting Dark Elf champion. Let's go ahead and jump through the kit. So on the A1, we have Corrode. Attacks all enemies, has a 30% chance or 50% chance if you book it, of placing a decreased defense debuff for 2 turns. An AoE drop defense on the A1, extremely good. It is only a 50% chance, but it's an A1, so you really can't complain, especially when it's an AoE A1. So very, very good very, very good A1. On the A2, attack all enemies, inflicts 50% more damage against targets under debuffs. Set her up to nuke down waves with a team within PvP or in dungeons, by placing a decreased defense or weaken or whatever debuffs before she hits, and she'll do extremely well there. And then on the A3, attack all enemies, removes all buffs, and then has a 50 or 70% chance if booked of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn. I do wish that she removed the buffs and then attacked all enemies. It would make things a lot better, but probably a little too strong in my opinion. But yeah, it's very nice to have like a buff stripper with this ability. And do notice that she will remove the buffs before having a chance of placing this freeze, so she could possibly remove block debuffs or something and then place the freeze, which is nice. And this is on a 5-turn cooldown or 6-turn cooldown if you book it. So yeah, and then you have increased ally speed in dungeons by 33%. Once again, an extremely good aura for dungeon runs. Overall, I've seen her in arena most of all, just because of this A3 ability, removing buffs, hitting them, possibly freezing, and just in general because she hits extremely hard. So yeah, overall, a very good attack champion, could definitely be used in arena, like I said. I could definitely see her being used in dungeons for fast clears and stuff like that. She's obviously going to be useful in faction wars. And yeah, so overall, just an overall great champion in general. And then the last champion we're going to talk about is from Night Rev, and it's going to be Skullcrown. So Skullcrown, I think everyone knows what Skullcrown does. Heavily used in arena. But yeah, let's just jump through her kit real quick. So Wave of Souls on the A1, attack all enemies, places an extra hit if the target has more than 50% HP. Very cool ability for nuking down waves. It could be used for like dungeon farming or for campaign farming and stuff like that. Arena definitely is useful. On the A2, Corrupting Touch, attacks all enemies, has a 50 or 75% chance if booked of placing a 25% weaken debuff for 2 turns. This ability hits extremely hard. Adding that weaken debuff is always a plus, so not a bad ability. On the passive, places an unkillable buff on this champion for 1 turn every time their HP drops below 20%, and this can drop down to a 4-turn cooldown. Always nice to have like a safety net, pretty much. You can build her extremely damage heavy, and not really worry about her being killed unless they can possibly remove the unkillable. On the other passive, from Beyond revives this champion with 30% HP, and this is only available if you have a Senesha, her sister, on the team, and this is on a 6-turn cooldown if you book it. And then increase ally speed in arena battles by 23%. So yeah, mainly used in like the blender comps within arena, with the ally attacks and stuff like that, if you don't know what blender is. But yeah, you pretty much trigger an ally attack, which makes them use their A1, and then obviously you're attacking everyone and then placing extra hit with anyone above 50% HP, which typically you'll set her like in the front for arena team, so she's like the second to attack with that ally attack. But yeah, overall, extremely good damage dealer. Can be used in dungeons to clear waves. I used her in faction wars to get through the waves. She can be used in arena for nuking down people, and a campaign farmer, honestly. So everywhere in the game, if you need a damage dealer, Skullcrown is that person. So yeah. Overall, though, that is all the champions that are going to be included in the 10 times event. Like I said, this 10 times event is a very tempting one. It has a lot of great damage dealers. You have stuff like, I'm looking at my list over here. You have Skytouched Shaman, very good in general for healing in arena. You have Prince Kymar, the Reset King. You have Psylar and Skullcrown as extremely good void epics. You have Ray as a great damage dealer. Overall, though, guys, this is going to be up to you guys on the summoning portion of this. 10 times events are hard to tell you guys to summon toward, just because you do not have an increased chance of getting that epic or legendary, in the sense of pulling an epic or legendary. So it's very hard to tell you guys to go after 10 times events. This 10 times event pool does have very, very good champions in it, though. So if you are specifically looking for these champions, and you know that you're near like the mercy system and you're going to be guaranteed something soon, I would say probably go for this. You have some really good champions. The only bad, like semi-bad champions, I would say, is probably Basilisk and Nazana. Everyone else can be extremely, like, can be used in a lot of areas. So but yeah, overall, up to you guys. In my opinion, I would say pull if you're looking for some. I think I will be pulling this weekend to try to get some of these champions. But yeah, that is my take on it. Let me know if you guys will be summoning this weekend down below in the comment section, and let me know what you guys want. But yeah, that is it for the video, and I will talk to you guys later. See ya.